From the super fast Mugello track as we get set for a mouth-watering sprint showdown in Italy, located in the heart of the breathtakingly beautiful Tuscany mountains and close to Florence and Bologna. Ducati and Aprilia go for glory on home turf. It's time for MotoGP. So Mugello, what a place, what a venue to host Grand Prix motorcycle racing. A track steeped in history, nestled in the heart of those Tuscany mountains, 5.245 kilometres, 15 very challenging corners, 6 left, 9 right. Pecco Bagnaia set a new all-time lap record in a very dramatic P2 this morning. It was some big talking points after his tango with Marquez in that first corner. San Donato, there'll be some drama there potentially in the 11th lap sprint coming your way. Dropping down to the splendid Casanova and Savelli section, the high-speed third gears, Arrabbiata 1 and 2, through beyond Etiwant. There's been some big crashes there this weekend as well, before the drag race to the finish line. Good afternoon and welcome to Mugello. It's the Oakley Grand Prix of Italy, and in just over 20 minutes time we are going to get sprint showdown number 6 in the 2023 MotoGP World Championship, and this one, folks, could be spicy. This one could be tasty after a very dramatic Q2 session this morning, which did see home hero Pecco Bagnaia delight those home fans with his third pole position in the last 4 Grand Prix, with the first ever sub 145 lap of this wonderful Mugello circuit. But that didn't really cover up half the story after he was involved in a frank exchange of views with Repsol Honda star Marc Marquez. The pantomime villain again here in Italy. He was booed as he came to the Parc Ferme afterwards. As we mentioned, it just ramps up the tension and wraps up the drama, doesn't it, ahead of this 11 lap Tissot sprint here as part of the Gran Premio d'Italia Oakley. First chance for the Italian fans then to soak up the special atmosphere of a sprint showdown. All eyes in the skies as well. You can see over in the distance there in the Tuscany mountains, there's been a lot of heavy dark cloud cover pretty much since we arrived at the circuit this morning. There was some overnight rain, and there has been forecast for rain since about 11 o'clock local time here this morning. Thankfully, that rain hasn't so far disturbed any of the action. Let's hope we are going to get a full dry sprint, because this one could be a blockbuster. San Donato, the heaviest braking point around this 5.2 kilometre Mugello circuit. That's where all the drama took place this morning involving Bagnaia and Marquez. That one will be talked about post-Mugello, not just into the evening here, depending on what happens in this sprint. Bagnaia has been the sprint master so far in 2023. He's taken the wins in Portimao, the win in Austin as well, a couple of other podiums as well in the last 2 Grand Prix in the sprint. 44 of the 60 points available in the sprint so far have gone the way of the reigning world champion. There is the special Ducati grandstand at current tyre, but Bagnaia involved in one of the big talking points, Lewis. This one's all set up to be an absolute box office showdown, isn't it? Bagnaia on pole, and Marc Marquez alongside him on the front row. The legend, the icon, Italy's motorsport superstar, Valentino Rossi, of course, continuing his career on 4 wheels now. Listen, we'll just stay quiet. Listen to the rapturous reception Rossi's getting from a circuit which he once owned, didn't he? 7 times a MotoGP winner here. And Rossi, I'm sure he'd love to be part of this battle unfolding very, very shortly. Matt Burt, Lewis Sotheby and Simon Crafar to bring you this coverage from this sprint. But Lewis, I don't know why, but I get a feeling that this could be the most spiciest, the most tasty, the most lively sprint we've had so far this year, given what we saw at the end of Q2 this morning.
I get the feeling that these 11 laps are going to whiz by. This Tissot sprint upcoming. You just saw Luca Marini whizzing through the frame there past his brother Valentino Rossi. It is worth bringing you up to speed on a change to the results that you saw at the end of qualifying 2 earlier on. Luca Marini's fastest lap was reinstated. It was previously deleted due to track limits, as you can see earlier on the screen. That that had relegated Marini to 11th on the grid. He now is back up in 4th place on the second row ahead of Jack Miller and Jorge Martin. So some positive news for VR46 in that respect, although it does bump Marco Bezzecchi onto the 3rd row of the grid. But no, so many ingredients in this sprint. And as we've seen, the 2 sprints that Marc Marquez has competed in so far this season, he has been right in the podium mix.
He certainly has. Marc Marquez won't be winning any popularity contests in this part of the world. When does he ever? In Italy, of course, after his previous battle royales with none other than Valentino Rossi. He locked on those, didn't he, with this man, Pecco Bagnaia, down in San Donato this morning. This man, you don't see him very often, lost his cool but quickly regrouped, quickly regained his composure. Bagnaia got a fantastic reception. They were chanting his name at the end of that dramatic Q2 session after he found a sensational lap down there. This is what it's all about. Marc Marquez on the left-hand side of your picture, exiting pit lane. Bagnaia coming into San Donato, braking from nearly 360 kilometres an hour. Felt like he was distracted there. And then it all kicked off, Lewis.
Yeah, Pecco Bagnaia is in a position there where he doesn't want to tip it into turn 1 to San Donato because he doesn't know where Marc's going to be. And then they pull alongside each other. Pecco getting very close. And Marc is wagging his finger there to Pecco Bagnaia. There's going to be a conversation here in Parc Fermé. Here they are having a little bit of a chat in Parc Fermé. Marc Marquez walks over to Pecco Bagnaia. What we can tell you is that Marc Marquez is saying to Pecco here, this time I wasn't looking for you. He wasn't looking for Bagnaia. He said he was actually going out on track and trying to find Marco Bezzecchi to try and follow him out on track because Bezzecchi had left the pit lane just up ahead of him. So a little bit of a misunderstanding, but it certainly set the pulses racing and the temperatures soaring earlier on today. And of course, as you say, it didn't exactly boost Marc Marquez's popularity. Not that it's exactly at an all-time high in Italy in any case, but it's a Marquez show at the front of the grid for this sprint because Alex Marquez, for the first time in MotoGP, joins his brother on the front row. Of course, he was on the front row in Argentina, a race that Marc Marquez missed. Alex Marquez bringing a 3-place grid penalty into this weekend's event, but that grid penalty applies to tomorrow. So he's got free reign to go from the front row in this sprint.
Yeah, it's not just Marquez versus Bagnaia, it's Marquez versus Marquez as well, isn't it? In this sprint showdown, this young man's had an excellent weekend. It started off in brilliant fashion yesterday morning when he set the best time in P1. He didn't let the disappointment of just missing out by a whisker on that direct place in Q2. Brilliant he was in Q1 this morning to top that 15-minute session. Came through with Jack Miller and then put on another stellar show to get himself on the front row for just a second time in his MotoGP career. Marc Marquez, of course, preserving his 100% front row starting record in 3 appearances so far this season. Now then, the big losers of the Marini lap reinstatement were Marco Bezzecchi and Alex Rins because they both slipped down 1 place. Bezzecchi thought he was going to be starting from the back of the second row in 6th, but he's now in 7th place. Certainly not lacking support here in Mugello on the front row of the grid here 1 year ago. He led at the first 8 laps, so he knows what it takes to lead in Mugello, and he knows what it takes now to win in MotoGP, doesn't he, crucially, in the dry as well after that phenomenal victory in France. What a way to mark 1,000 Grand Prix. Last time out in front of a record crowd in Le Mans. Do not discount this young man, Lewis, because he's got really strong race pace.
Yeah, the World Championship lead, of course, could change hands in this sprint. Marco Bezzecchi coming into this Grand Prix just 1 point behind the current World Championship leader, the reigning champion, Pecco Bagnaia. Although it's fair to say this season, as a rule, Bezzecchi hasn't maximised the sprint so far. Mick Doohan, he's another legend who I'm sure would love to have taken part in a Tissot sprint. He's, of course, going to be watching from the sidelines here this afternoon. 11 laps of drama up ahead of us.
The 5 times world champion, the 500cc world champion, what a legend Mick Doohan is. Really, really good to see the Repsol Honda man here, and he'll be having some home allegiance with fellow Aussie Jack Miller, who came through a very tricky Q1 session this morning behind Alex Marquez and then did a really good job. Viva Melo, we've come all the way from Australia to support you. Bless us with a glove. Question mark, question mark. There's a lot of requests for Jack Miller and gloves. I mean, I remember last year in the Saxon Ring he did the business, but I don't know if he's got enough pairs of gloves in the truck here. There we go. Brilliant to see from Jack. Of course, in the revised grid then, he starts from 5th. Don't discount him. We were in the restaurant in nearby Scarperia last night, weren't we? A stone's throw away from this Mugello circuit. There was a bunch of Australian fans who made the very, very long journey, all 11,500 miles of it, to come and see Jack Miller in action here at one of the finest Grand Prix circuits on the calendar. Great to see fans coming from far and wide to see this Mugello sprint.
One thing we know that Jack Miller has at his disposal, along with his teammate Brad Binder, is top speed. That KTM is an absolute rocket ship. down the start-finish straight. Brad Binder in qualifying earlier on today hit 362.4 kilometres an hour, eye-watering speeds down the start-finish straight. So if those KTMs are anywhere near the front of the field, they're just going to breeze past motorcycles down the start-finish straight, and we know how difficult they are to overtake too. So keep a very close eye on Miller and Binder in this sprint. They start 5th and 11th respectively.
It's not just their top speed as well, is it? Their starting prowess this year. They've been fantastic. Phenomenal launch off the line as well, particularly when you think about the 4 starts we had in those 2 red flags in Jerez, where nobody could hold a candle to the KTMs firing up to that first corner in the Spanish Grand Prix. So he hobbles, he limps to his factory Ducati. When he's off the bike, that's a bit of a problem, that broken ankle. He's up in that controversial tangle with Maverick Vinales in the French Grand Prix. When he's on it, no pain, no problem for the man who sports the number 1 here. Proud moment for Pecco Bagnaia. The first time in front of his home crowd, he gets to support that number 1 plate on the World Championship winning Ducati. 3 poles, as we mentioned, the last 4 races, although the previous 2 haven't served him very well on Sundays, have they? Crashing from pole and out the lead in Cota, and crashing out from pole last time out in Le Mans. There are so many ex-Italian racing gods here, aren't they? Superstars, led by none other than 15 times world champion Giacomo Agostini, who had the pleasure in our 1000th Grand Prix in Le Mans 2 weeks ago of waving the checkered flag as Marco Bezzecchi crossed the line. Valentino Rossi, of course, is here on site. Max Biaggi, as an ever-present, as he always so often is. Danilo Petrucci's back here, 2019 Mugello winner, and, of course, our latest and newest MotoGP legend, Andrea Dovizioso, also enjoying the atmosphere here in Mugello.
Well, we were on board there with Fabio Quartararo. He's kind of sick of Saturdays at the moment, isn't he, in 2023? He's had a pretty poor run of it so far this season. As we get ready to take a look at the Michelin tyre information, expect softer tyres in particular to get used in this upcoming TSO sprint. If we look at the allocation, the soft and the medium rear options have been brought to this Grand Prix. Of course, only 2 of the 3 compounds are brought to this Grand Prix. Expect everyone to go for the softer options over what is a 11-lap race coming up. And then, of course, the longer race tomorrow will provide a very different challenge. But expect everyone to go soft for the sprint.
An 11-lap race, which, believe it or not, yes, we are speaking the truth. Fabio Quartararo finds himself marooned way down 15th place on the grid. His last 3 qualifying sessions, Quartararo 16th in Jerez, 13th in Le Mans, 15th here in Mugello. He hasn't been able to find himself out of Q1 in those last 3 Grand Prix. Yamaha have to find a way to sort out those soft tyre woes, don't they? Quartararo again out-qualified by 1 position by his teammate Frankie Morbidelli. Here are then the exclusive, brilliant overhead drone shots, bringing you these wonderful pictures as we build up to the sprint showdown here. Let's go down to Simon Crafar. He's joined by Repsol Honda manager Alberto Puig. What does he expect from his man Marc Marquez in this sprint? Down to you guys.
Yeah, that's what I want to know too, guys, what Alberto would expect from this race, and a really good qualifying. But first of all, Alberto, about the qualifying, we've all heard and seen Paolo Ciabatti's comments. I thought it was only fair to get your comments on the qualifying incident this morning, turn 1.
Well, no comment because there was no incident. There was nothing to talk about. I mean, there was nothing to talk. There was no incident at all. I mean, what do you want to comment?
No, I understand. I understand your opinion. No, moving right along, can you tell us what you expect from Marc? I mean, he pulled out something amazing following Pecco. Can he hang on in the race today, like race pace wise?
This is not so easy. I mean, he can manage to do 1 lap, but true is that the Ducati riders are more consistent, and Bagnaia is really consistent this weekend, so it will not be easy. But also, on the other hand, you know this guy, so it's better not to make any bet on what he can or cannot do. But not easy, but we are on, well, he's in first row, so he will try to do his maximum.
Thanks for your time, Alberto. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Repsol Honda manager Alberto Puig. So the official version from the Honda camp after that skirmish this morning between this man Bagnaia and Honda is, please disperse. Nothing to see here. Nothing
incident, more incident.
Yeah, of course, we heard from Paolo Ciabatti, Ducati sporting director, talking to Jack Appleyard this morning. They're pretty much sick of this towing by Marc Marquez. Not happy that they felt he was clearly disturbing Pecco Bagnaia this morning. They wanted the stewards to step in, didn't they? There has been no action, we have to reiterate, on Marc Marquez from the F1 GP stewards. But as you mentioned, the incident this morning, it just builds up that tension ahead of this sprint.
So Pecco Bagnaia on pole position from Marc Marquez and Alex Marquez, whose penalty applies tomorrow. Luca Marini, Jack Miller and Jorge Martin starting on the second row, all on the soft rear tyre. Marco Bezzecchi heads row 3 ahead of Aleix Espargaro, who's carrying a pretty nasty injury into this weekend. More on that before the sprint gets underway. John Zarco starts 9th. Alex Rins 10th ahead of Brad Binder, who's won sprints from further back than that this year. And Enea Bastianini returning to action in 12th, looking for his first finish of the season. Maverick Vinales 13th after missing out in Q1. He's got the 2 factory Yamahas alongside him. Morbidelli ahead of Quartararo for the 3rd time this year. Taka Nakagami, Michele Pirro, wildcard for Ducati, and the returning Miguel Oliveira are on row 6. Fabio Di Gianantonio, pole last year, P19 this year. Ralph Fernandez and Augusto Fernandez joined him. Augusto had a massive crash in free practice this morning. And Lorenzo Savadori, wildcarding for Aprilia after his career best race result last time as an RNF stand-in. He's 22nd ahead of Jonas Folger.
Yeah, it's been a bruising Saturday for the Fernandez boys. As Lewis mentioned, Augusto Fernandez absolutely totaled a gas machine at Biondetti 2 this morning, and 2 heavy crashes for Raul Fernandez as well. Now, we just mentioned the fast-starting KTMs, the top speed of the KTMs, which mean they're going to be a big threat in this 11-lap sprint. What are the thoughts pre-sprint of Jack Miller and Brad Binder's team boss, Pit Byra?
Yeah, he's just finishing chatting to someone that happened to walk up while you were introducing us. Pitt, thanks for your time. As always, can you tell us your thoughts going into the sprint today? Jack did an amazing job putting it so far up on the grid in the last moment there. Sadly, Brad had a fall, but overall, it looks like your machine can run with even the Ducatis at this big long straight.
Thank you. Yeah, I have the same feeling. I mean, we are competitive. We have been not super lucky or super smart in being in the right place in the right moment. So Jack had to do it the hard way through Q1 to Q2. Now we are in the second row. But of course, Brad should be more in the front. But then, he crashed in the outlap. So, but all in all, I'm really happy the performance is there on this difficult Mugello track. Going high speed with these red bikes over there means something, and I feel the riders are happy. We turn well, we have good traction, we have a great top speed, so I feel we can go racing now.
Thanks, Pitt, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Pit Byra getting himself fully focused and in the zone for just his second front row start in his MotoGP career is Alex Marquez. It's Marquez versus Marquez on that long run down to the braking zone for San Donato. Valentino Rossi doing what all good team owners do, all good team managers, having a few words of encouragement initially with Marco Bezzecchi. There he is on the left-hand side of your picture talking to Sky Italy and having a good close look at his brother here, Luca Marini, who is one of several walking wounded here this weekend, Lewis.
Certainly is. Luca Marini injured his right wrist and also his thumb in the crash that brought an end to his French Grand Prix when he collided with Alex Marquez. Now, he brought that injury into the weekend. He is in constant pain, he says, but he says that it doesn't get worse as he goes through the race. So he doesn't feel it's an issue that's going to stop him from competing either today or, of course, in the full-length Grand Prix tomorrow. But Luca Marini is certainly going to be riding through the pain barrier. Of course, the penalties and the changes to the qualifying results earlier on. I mean, Marini will actually be on the front row of the grid tomorrow. Big
boost that, wasn't it? Getting that lap reinstated, 4th on the grid. You're in the game, you're in the race, and that's going to just let the adrenaline take over, hopefully block out or what will be a difficult 11-lap sprint, an even bigger challenge tomorrow, of course, in that 23-lap Italian Grand Prix. Now then, our most recent sprint winner was this man 3 weeks ago, Jorge Martin. He'd been waiting a long time for that sprint win, and having come so close in round 1 in Portimao. Fantastic French Grand Prix for Martin. 32 out of 37 points he took with a second place, followed up from his sprint win, and it's tight at the top of the championship. Just 1 point splitting Bagnaia and Bezzecchi coming into their home round here this weekend, and then 14 points coming in the top 4 in the field. Now, the big hopes for Bezzecchi and Marini. Let's get a word from the big boss himself, Valentino Rossi, with Simon.
Yeah, he is. Valentino, I'd love your thoughts on your riders. They've been great so far this weekend. I don't think Bez quite achieved what he could, but Luca with the injury so far up the grid.
Yeah, he did a very good lap time this morning, and the pace is not too bad. Now we hope that he don't have too much pain with the small fracture that he have on the right hand. He have 2 or 3 braking downhill where he suffer a bit, but he prepared at the maximum for the race, and we hope that both can make a good result because they have a good pace.
Thank you, Valentino.
Ciao.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Valentino Rossi. His nerves will be fraying right now, jangling right now, not just because of this sprint coming up. There's a rather important football match tonight taking place in Istanbul, the final of the UEFA Champions League between Valentino's beloved Inter Milan and Manchester City. I wonder who's going to win that battle. He'll be certainly hoping his boys will give him some pre-match boost here with a big points all in this sprint. There is Marini. He's getting himself ready. Pecco Bagnaia as well, also acknowledging the crowd. He got a great reception having taken that record-breaking pole position this morning. There is Bez as well, 7th place on the grid. He led the main Grand Prix here last year for the first 8 laps. And as we said, he's got that winning touch, he's got that winning feeling, and he likes it. He wants to keep it going, keep that momentum rolling, doesn't he, in this vital 3 weeks. 111 points at stake over the next 3 weekends here in Mugello. We move quickly on to the German Grand Prix, the Sachsenring next weekend, and then before the 5-week summer break, the iconic Dutch TT in Assen. Of course, these guys want to be at the front of all these 3 sprints and 3 Grand Prix coming up, but you've got to be racking up the points. Brad Binder emphasised that point, didn't he, Lewis, on Thursday? Yeah, you want to be fighting with a podium, but at the back of your mind, you've got to be thinking about consistency and keep racking up those big points.
Well, Marco Bezzecchi has scored the vast majority of his points on a Sunday. Pecco Bagnaia, it's a bit more of a 50-50 split with his points on a Saturday and a Sunday, which is why they're only separated by 1 point. Brad Binder has been another rider this season to pretty much split his points evenly between the sprint and the race on the Sunday. 12 points on offer, of course, for the winner of this Tito sprint over 11 laps of racing. And we're expecting something more resembling Moto 3, I think, in this upcoming sprint. I asked Jorge Martin about this yesterday, and he said it's going to be a big, big group in the sprint.
Yeah, and the sprint stars, without any question so far in 2023, have been the poleman Bagnaia, Jorge Martin and Brad Binder. They've shared the 5 wins so far. They've amassed a whole bunch of points. Bagnaia, 44 points from the sprint alone. Binder, 38. Martin, 36. So then your front row of the grid for this 11-lap Tissot sprint here in Mugello. Alex Marquez on the front row of the grid for just the 2nd time in his MotoGP career. For the first time, he shares that front row with his older brother, 8 times world champion Marc Marquez. Surely there's going to be fireworks coming from him. But on pole position here in Mugello is Pecco Bagnaia. Can he delight the home crowd with a sprint win here in Italy?